Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. I wasn't going to do this today because I am tired and I just got off work and I would like to go home, but we have a snowstorm coming, so I do have to make a stop on the way anyway, so I figured might as well make the most of the time and do this because we have a blizzard coming, and blizzards are not fun, and I just don't want to deal with it. So let's talk about, and anytime I do that, I always think of an episode of Frasier where he gets Roz mad at him, so he's talking about forgiveness, and he's like, he or she. But what we're going to talk about today is insiders, and do insiders actually exist, and all of that, because I haven't heard a single piece of legitimate video game news out of anyone, besides Insider what this company says. Now, I think that, due to the fact that there is a lack of unionizing among video game employees, I think that there is, a solid chance that, there is some people who are actual insiders who are working on these games day in, day out, and are, actually leaking information. I do think there are some legitimate leaks. And I think that just as frequently, there are not legitimate leaks. And what I mean by that is how it feels like on a weekly basis, or at least 3 times a week. I'm gonna be diplomatic about it. At least 3 times a week, there's an article that's like, and here is, Here is an insider from Hogwarts Legacy telling us about when to expect this game coming out. An insider from Rockstar knowing when this game is going to come out. And I think that the biggest thing that throws into the face of these supposed insiders is that there are things that would have come out about things that, had it been accurate and had they actually had insiders, these things would have been known beforehand. And I'm not talking about internal politics that, are weighing in on office life on a day-to-day basis. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, without fail, there is never a game that is universally acclaimed. And the same goes for movies. There's never a movie that's universally acclaimed. But what there is there are things that are, there's always some division. And usually it's on what would be considered political lines. I don't think that's a fair way to put it. But it is political lines that fall along that ideology. And the problem is, I think that if we're going to sit here and micromanage what happens in each in these studios, and we're going to look at what's going on and be like, oh, okay, so here's what an insider is saying from here, and here's what an insider is saying from here, and here's what an insider is saying from here. If all things are equal, and these insiders are there, and they are accurate when it comes to insider info leaking toward right-wing news sources, wouldn't they be accurate more often? And wouldn't they know things before the movie happens? Like, let's take No Way Home, for example. So I'm going to play the spoiler warning, in case you're one of the 5 people on the planet who hasn't seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet, and wants to see it. If you look at No Way Home, there were things that got out beforehand. We knew that there was going to be the 3 Spider-Men. Daredevil's involvement was known in advance. And there were a lot of things. But there were also things in that movie that we didn't know. Like, I think that it was not known that the entire ending was not known. The death of Aunt May was not known. These are things that when you look at the, what would have happened and would have, for lack of a better word, triggered these right-wing morons who get upset about these things and generate things for clicks, you would have thought that was something that they would have picked up on, and that Aunt May would be taking the Uncle Ben role. That's textbook, right up their alley. for what would be something that would piss them off. And I think that the fact that that didn't get out is a testament to the fact that there aren't really any insiders who are leaking this information. Like, there was a leak that came out about, I'm going to say spoiler warning again, because the movie hasn't come out yet, so I'm just going to, put that there. And again, don't know how accurate the leak is, because it's a grainy picture taken from like a mile and a half away. It could be real, it could be fake. I don't know. I'm not, I wasn't on set to confirm the validity of this. So, take that as you will. There's a set picture that shows, allegedly, Tom Cruise on set for Multiverse of Madness, playing an alternate universe Tony Stark. I don't know how accurate that is, or how real it is. Again, the picture's taken from like a mile and a half away, so it could be him, it could not be him. And I think that, the fact that Tom Cruise was floated to be Tony Stark, almost 15 years ago. No, it would be 15 years. No. Would it be? No, 2008. No, next year would be 15 years. So 14 years ago, it was floated that, he would play Tony Stark. And because I don't think that's enough to draw in and be like, oh, okay, so here's what we think. It'd be like, the thing is, like, there's no evidence that they attempted to get Joaquin Phoenix to play Doctor Strange, and he was the other floated name for Doctor Strange back in, when the movie was casting. He was the alternate, or maybe not the alternate, but he was someone else who was heavily in it, and he didn't want to get involved in a franchise. So, that happened. So, a one-off where he's playing an alternate universe Doctor Strange could have happened, but that's not the case. It's like, oh, well, they're trying to add Andrew Garfield in reshoots for Spider-Man in Multiverse of Madness. It's like, oh, bullshit. Because back when it was just specious rumors and unsubstantiated that the other three Spider-Men were going to be appearing in No Way Home, it was not like, oh, look, and here is where we're going to have, what's it called? Here's where we're going to have, Andrew Garfield to appear here. No one made that claim, and you think for us, and that's the thing, is I don't think Marvel really has surprises, in the way that, like, like I think that that's something that they focus test, and they do things within an inch of their lives to make sure that, like, things will be well received. I don't think that, I think the decision to bring in Andrew Garfield way back, like, get rid of Andrew Garfield when they signed this deal with Sony was based purely on the fact that, we can look at, what the fuck is that smell? Based purely on the fact that we can have, we just had Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that was not well received by a good amount of people. A lot of people did not like that movie, so they didn't want to, lump it in. They didn't want people to have to remember that when they were doing that and be like, oh, well, this nonsense that we didn't like, especially coming off of Tobey Maguire's movies, it's like, that happened. Now, I mean, I didn't hate Amazing Spider-Man 2 out of the gate, and to this day, I mean, I think it's got some of the most inventive, action sequences for Spider-Man. I really like the fights between him and Electro. I think it's some of the most interesting, visuals there. I don't think that it's it's something that necessarily needs to, I don't think it's something that necessarily needed to be, heavily, done to get to that point. I don't think it was a necessity, and I don't think we necessarily needed we necessarily needed, a new, I don't think sorry, there was a cop trying to get by. I don't think we necessarily needed a new, like, entire thing just to get him. Like, I think that I completely lost my train of thought. Tom Holland recasting in 2015, 2016. I think that, like, if we watch that movie, it's not terrible, the action featuring Andrew Garfield in that movie. I don't think it's awful. I think that, you know, and I think that that's the strongest thing about the movie, but, like, you know, the mystery subplots and all the stuff that goes in and around the movie is not fantastic, and I think that that's a hindrance ultimately to the movie. But I think a lot of people got caught up on that, and they didn't really like Andrew Garfield's, you know, performance. But if you look at that movie, he wasn't really given a lot to work with. Same with him in the first Amazing Spider-Man. He wasn't, like, those movies around him were not great. And he could have done a great job, but they just didn't capture Peter Parker and like, they caught Spider-Man, but they didn't really capture the Peter Parker aspects well enough. And he did a great job with the material he was given. And I think that's ultimately the problem here. So I think that, like, you know, being like, hey, we're going to go right in with the next thing, and then on top of it, we've already built in this world, and it feels weird that, you know, we're going to have the Avengers in this same already pre-built world where, like, we can just start fresh and go out of the gate there. That would make more sense. I think that that's ultimately a weird situation to be in. And it's just easier to be like, look, we're just going to reboot, start fresh. And I think that, you know, there was a lot of backlash to Andrew Garfield. That's the thing about a lot of, you know, casting controversies, is that when it initially happens and when movies come out and fans get vitriolic about the casting and all of that, after the fact we can look back on it and be like, oh, well, you know, this was a good decision, this worked out, this worked well, this was good. And then it's like, you know, nobody hated this, and it's like, what, are you fucking kidding me? Like, out of the gate, people hated this. And it's just, you're looking at it with rose-colored glasses, and you're being like, look, it's not, you know, we weren't that bad. It's like, well, no, you were pretty shitty. It's like, people looking back now, it's like, oh, we gave, Andrew Garfield didn't get enough credit, Andrew Garfield didn't do this, Andrew Garfield didn't do this. And it's like, still, you guys still were shitty. Like, that's fundamentally the problem here, is that you were shitty about, you know, this whole thing out of the gate. And then we're going to sit here, we're going to be like, oh, well, now it's, you know, now all is, you know, fixed, all is better, everyone's happy now. It's like, well, it doesn't fix what you did or make it better. It just makes it, you know, different. And it's like, even with, like, the Ben Affleck thing, where it's like, everyone's talking about Ben Affleck, like, you know, his second coming of Christ when it comes to Batman. There were so many people who shit all over Ben Affleck when it was announced he's going to be playing Batman, and how shitty the choice it was, and all of that. And then it's like, you know, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is great, he was great, because you saw what happened. But people are so reactionary, and it's like the same thing, like, this is never not a thing, because the same thing happened with, like, when Michael Keaton was cast. People had backlash to Michael Keaton's casting as Batman. And then now we can look back and say, like, oh, it was a great idea, and this worked out, and all of that. But it doesn't change how people were in the short term when it happened. And the thing is like, oh, we can sit here and say, oh, well, they're making millions of dollars, and they're doing X, Y, and Z, and, you know, all of that. But they're still people. Like, actors are still people, and I know that that's not a popular opinion, but they're still people who have to deal with, you know, their emotions and the stress and all of that. It's still a lot to deal with. And to be like, oh, well, they're getting paid millions of dollars, let's just put up with it. Well, you can just not be shitty. So I think that I'm getting way off on a tangent here about, you know, this, where it's like, with these insiders, what we're talking about is, you know, I think that had Andrew Garfield been cast and was going to appear in the multiverse, in Multiverse of Madness, there would have been some insider who was like, hey, by the way, like, there's no, even if they were pending reaction from No Way Home, even if that was the case, and they're like, well, we want to see what the reaction from No Way Home is going to be before we pull the trigger on this, it's like, even if that was the case, there's no way that they are like, oh shit, everyone likes him in No Way Home, like, just pull it in now. It's definitely like, let's see the reaction from No Way Home, and then we'll pull him in if we like it. And I think that the thing is, too, Sam Raimi is directing this movie. And I think if Sam Raimi gets the chance to bring in a Spider-Man, he's going to be lobbying heavy for the one he directed in the past. He's definitely going to prefer to have Tobey Maguire in there, not Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield's the fan pick, but if we're looking at the talent behind the movie, it's like, look, we're going to pull in Tobey Maguire, not Andrew Garfield. It just, there are so many things that you look at this and you're like, I don't understand how we got to this point with people just not understanding the very basic fundamentals of how this whole situation works in general. I don't think that this, and the thing is too, it's like, oh, well, we guessed this. That's what a good amount of insiders are, is they're good guessers. Like, that is, at their core, that's what an insider is. They're a good guesser. Because, like, I've pointed to this over and over again, but We Got This Covered is one of these, exclusive. We have an exclusive. Here's something that's going to be happening. Exclusive. Like, we know what's coming. Get ready. Exclusive. Like, here's what we're looking at is like, oh, well, we predict, like, that Marvel's making a She-Hulk show. Okay, you had correctly scooped that they're making a She-Hulk show. And then what they'll do is they'll cite other things that were correct, that this insider had did it, and that insider will give them information about other things that are coming. And it's like, well, this insider who said that we had, She-Hulk also confirmed this, and this. And it's like, it's like the one they kept citing was like, the Golden Eagle armor in Wonder Woman 1984. And then there was one other one that I don't remember that was also like, oh, this insider also got, also did, this, what was the other one? Was it a Star Wars thing, maybe? But it doesn't matter. All that we need to really address here is that this insider, quote-unquote insider, who works at, who communicates with We Got This Covered, will talk to, works at all of these companies and does that. So it's like, what, you have someone who, like, does all the sound mixing at Skywalker Sound? Or ILM? Or, like, one of these companies that all of these people use, and they just happen to work on all of these major projects? Oh, but no, it can't be that, because they're not revealing things that happened during production. They're revealing things that happened even before production is announced. So you have someone who works in the offices at all these places. Okay, so you got one insider who works at, Marvel, who works at Sony, who works at, and not even within the same company at them, because, like, that's the thing, is, like, they count on the fact that that, like, Disney is owned by Lucasfilm, and, like, Lucasfilm owns Disney, Walt Disney Pictures, Walt Disney Animation, Pixar, and all of that, yet they don't understand that these are all subsidiaries of one company, in the same way that, like, if someone works for, like, I don't know, like, Procter & Gamble, it's unlikely that they also know the inside workings of every subsidiary of Procter & Gamble. They don't know what, like, because they compartmentalize. It's not about knowing what every little thing does in the company, because who needs to know all of that information? They need to be able to realize what is relevant to their departments. And if they don't do that, then that's the problem. Do I think that, looking at this and saying, like, oh, well, it's guaranteed that this person, works at any one of these companies? It's like, well, I don't think that's likely at all. I don't think it's likely that, they have someone who works at all of these companies and they're willing to spill insider information like that, because it's like, the number of people who knew that they were making a She-Hulk show before the She-Hulk show was announced was very limited, as was the amount of people who knew that the Golden Eagle armor was there. So that's the thing, is like, the fact that these people don't go away, and it's like, oh, we lost our insider because they got fucking fired, never happens, because they don't exist. Unless, like, their insider is, like, the editor-in-chief at, like, the Hollywood Reporter or Variety and just really shitty at their job. And he's just like, oh, well, here's information that isn't public knowledge yet. Let me just give it to you for free, other site, because this information would drive clicks to us, but why would we give it to you? And that's the thing, too. It's like, why would these insiders give it to a third-rate site when they can give it to a major trade, where it'll get higher readership? So that's the thing about insiders. I think insiders are bullshit. I think insiders are fake exclusives designed to get people, clicking on articles without really looking at, deeply where it comes from. And as long as that's a thing, it's just going to continue to drive, readership away from legitimate journalism and into these sites that are like, well, we can make this up and make it sound legitimate. And that's a problem. And it continues to drive down the level of discourse. So we'll wrap up there for today. And we'll be back with more news as it happens, probably Sunday, because tomorrow's going to be clusterfuck and I'm not going to leave my house. So until then, have a great rest of your day.